Okay, so today is December the 18th, and I have been so lax. I won't even grace you with excuses. And for a while, I just was kind of like, well, I was putting it off because it was so far off anyways that it just kept getting pushed off and off and off. And now I'm feeling the opposite, where I'm feeling like such a sense of urgency to post something that I can't prolong this any further. So I'm going to move on to a different topic. If you still have questions about the Bible, I know I didn't finish it. I had at least one more conclusive point, but forget it, man. The Bible's true. So if you have any other questions about anything else, let me know, and I will address those individually. So hold on a second. Alright, so I want to share a revelation that I got early. Actually, I think I talked about it in the very first video that I did. And it was about Abraham and God coming down to Abraham and telling him that he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And, Abraham said, will you destroy the city if there's, at least 10 righteous in the city? And God said, if there's at least 10, I won't destroy it. God ended up destroying the city. But at some point, when God was describing to Abraham why he was going to come down and destroy the city, he said that the sin of the city has reached him in heaven, and that he was going to go down and see if it was really as bad as all that. And the lady that called in said she was confused about that, because she was thinking, why would God not be able to know what's going on in that city? Is he not, that doesn't make any sense. If he's supposed to be all-knowing, why doesn't he know the level of sin in that city? Like he was up in heaven on a lofty perch and couldn't see. The host actually did a good job of answering the question, because he said basically that that was God's way of talking to us. Alright, so anyway, so the guy was like, I don't know. So he said that, he said that God talks that way to us so that we can understand him, because he is all powerful and he's a spirit. He's not even really necessarily human. So he has to use these terms of him being able to, smell the sin that was coming from Sodom and Gomorrah. He said that the sin, the stench had reached him in heaven. So all of that is a very technical term called anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. Is it anthropomorphism? I'm pretty sure. To give himself human qualities. And that was a pretty, whatever. That was a pretty standard statement. But as I was thinking of it, I kind of got a revelation on it. And it builds on a revelation that I had similar to that before that. Which is basically that that God, the extent of his power and his authority is something that we don't really think about a lot. But along with this passage, a lot of people also stumble over the passage about God creating evil, or that anytime he has something evil happen in the Bible, it says that God did this, or God sent an angel, or God, did these things that are, an illness came, or a curse came, or something like that. Well, God still, even though the devil and his angels have rebelled against him, they still are in his employ. So ultimately, yeah, he is responsible for something that evil that happens. If he causes something to happen, which is him taking responsibility for everything that happens, which he should, because he's God. We have to be careful what we do that with. God never has to be careful because everything is caused by God. And this is a little off the subject, so I may just cut this whole thing out. But basically, I was reading in Esther about King Xerxes, and when you read about the amount of authority this king had, is just something that we're not used to, especially being in America, being under a democracy. A monarchy is just completely foreign to us, and one from thousands and thousands of years ago is even more so. So the king was not just there for show. The king and queen, these were the supreme authorities. But they were not the same as the supreme authority in our country, which would be the president. He's not a servant, necessarily. The president serves the people. The president looks at all the orders. Everything has to go through him before it's okayed. He has a tremendous amount of stuff on his plate. King's the same way too, except for he has even more things on his plate. And he has things that he can't possibly get to. All of which that he can't possibly get to. So what does he have to do? He has to hire people under him. Not a cabinet of advisors like we have, but he has to hire people that are going to be over his affairs. Over 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, maybe. I don't think King has got that big, but my point is that he had levels of associates, and the higher your position, the more responsibility you had until you ultimately got to the king. So a lot of times the king he's not a micromanager. He wasn't all in people's business. He would just let people rule, and then every once in a while people would come to him. So everyone had this idea that you only brought very, very important matters to the king. And even with that mindset, he was constantly making decisions and having people come to him, because he's ruling over a very large kingdom. So that is really a better picture of the way it is in heaven, because kingdoms really have their start in heaven, and armies and war really has its start outside of this earth. So God has angels, and we kind of, sometimes if you think about angels, I don't know if you're like me, but if you think about angels in their station, you kind of wonder, well, what do? They just follow us around? They just shadow us? And there's so many myriad types of angels in the Bible. They can't all just be guardian angels. They obviously have jobs. And if you think about Satan's kingdom is even divided up in the same way, which makes sense if he saw this pattern in heaven, where you have dominion, and he's not necessarily himself going around and doing these things. He's got other demons doing these things, and sometimes he has demons over a household, some a whole neighborhood, some a church, some an entire city. So it kind of goes up and up and up from there. With that being said, you can understand why back in the day, if the king would send you a very high level official in his stead,
it could be, it could still be a great honor because it's basically like the king himself coming. Um, depending on that person's station. And, the person's station is low, then that was considered an insult because it was like the king is not even bothered with you. But if the king sent, um, his regent or whatever, that's basically the king. I mean, you know that you have an audience. You know that you have a voice to talk directly to the king if you get close enough to him. So imagine if the king himself has to stop what he's doing, get off of the throne to come down and see about something. What that passage is doing is telling you just how bad that city was. That nobody else could handle the business of that city except for God himself, leaving his throne empty for a second to come down and go, okay, what is going on? Any other time he's got angels that probably preside over things and report to him. And you can even see that in the scriptures where sometimes an angel will come and they'll bow down before the angel because they think it's God. Probably. They bow low to worship the angel, and every time I would read that, I'd be like, why do they do that? They know that they worship God. They know that they know that's an angel. The angel was probably so full of God's authority, a very high level angel. And what does it say that, what are angels supposed to be? Messengers. Well, are they literally taking pieces of paper that God has written on? No. They are, it's almost as though they are the conduits for God's Spirit. And so a messenger can come and be very, I don't know if there's any angels that aren't completely majestic and amazing. But sometimes it will say the angel of the Lord, and we go, oh, well, that's still an angel. Well, the angel of the Lord is acting and composing himself as if he were God. In those instances, I'm pretty sure that's just God downloading himself to an angel and coming down to earth in either a greater measure or, in a certain amount. So, like when the angel of the Lord comes down and talks to Abraham in this case, or I don't know, I think it says God, but then before that, the angel comes and it says that there's 3 men that come to eat with him. Or like that where it says that an angel of the Lord wrestles with Jacob, and you go, okay, that's an angel of the Lord. Then the angel's like, well, what is your name? From this day on, you're going to be known as Israel. Okay, this angel, who's this angel going around naming people? It's God. It's God's Spirit. It's the messenger of God coming down. So it's God distributing himself among his creation. So, and just sort of representing him in a certain essence. So now you got a case of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's really kind of unfortunate and upsetting because the sin, if I wanted God to come down to earth, I would want him to come down to praise me about something. Not because my sin was so freaking huge and great that it was so upsetting to heaven that he had to come down and personally put a stop to it. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. So yeah, I got that revelation, and I just thought it was important because even though that anthropomorphism thing is basically true, I think there was a deeper revelation with that he missed. That has to do with the nature of God, the nature of heaven, and the things that we can't see and we can't possibly know about because they're ancient, and it doesn't help that there are certain forces in the world that want that history to be suppressed and want that reality to be suppressed. One that Abraham was quite familiar with, I'm sure, but one that has now been erased with our modern government, and which is really just, if you ask me, it's just kind of a smoke screen I believe that this kingdom system is something that we still absolutely live under, and that what we are experiencing and what we are being told is really just a kind of a fishbowl, snow globe, aquarium experiment within a greater kingdom. Because we're easier to control when we are being told that we're just being catered to, and that we get to vote and pick the people that we want to do stuff, and every so often something happens and you can see the strings being pulled, and you kind of go, "What's that about?" And then you go on to with your life. Well, that's because we're really just being placated, and we're a kingdom within a kingdom at this point, because we're being deceived. So kingdoms still exist, monarchy still exists, kings are still very much in power, and that's why when Jesus comes, he's going to be a king and not a president. Not even God, really. He's going to be a king. So, yeah, I just really wanted to share that for some reason. I just felt like that was the next thing I needed to talk about. And, okay, so let me pray really quick. Lord, thank you for giving me the incentive to pick this back up again, and just thank you for not leaving me be and nagging me in your holy special way to do this. And I just hope I did it for a reason, and that it would help somebody understand you better and have a greater reverence and curiosity about you, and who you really are and who we are in you. So thank you, Lord, and amen. Y'all have a blessed day.